finally the monsoon has arrived. Yeah, a very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all in this program organized by Vidarbha Industries Association, Brexit. It's a very hot topic, and we have an expert with us to cover this topic from all the way from Bombay Stock Exchange as an economist, Mr. Aditya Ji. Yeah, I welcome him on behalf of Vidarbha Industries Association. I would request the chairman of the Finance Forum, Sri Rohit Ji Agrawal, to please welcome him by offering a floral bouquet. And this is the first program after the new body has taken over charge of this Vidarbha Industries Association. Sri O.S. Bagadia ji has taken over as the Vice President, and Suhas Buddha ji has taken over as a Secretary of this organization. I would request the Chairman, Vice President, VIA, Sri O.S. Bagadia ji, for his welcome address.
Good evening, friends. On behalf of Vidarbha Industries Association, I welcome you all to this first meeting after the new body. Today's topic is Brexit. Regarding this, UK has alienated from the European Union, and this is one of the major events happening last week, affecting most of the countries, especially the currencies of various countries has seen the major fluctuation, which is affecting the trade all over the world. And India is not the country which is not affected. It is going to affect. There is a lot of fluctuation we are seeing in the currency of various dollar to rupee, rupee to pound, and everything. And because of that, definitely import exports affected in a lot of way. Today we have with us Dr. Srinivasan, who is Chief Economist in the Bombay Stock Exchange for Broker Forum Association. And last time also he had addressed the VI member on the global economy also. He expert, perhaps his views on today's subject may throw a more major light on the today's crisis which entire world is facing. And we welcome you, sir, in today's meeting. And I hope that we will get knowledge about his experience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I request the speaker to elaborate on this hot topic, I would request Meghna to introduce today's speaker to all the audience. Thereafter, he can start his presentation. Meghna, please.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of VI, I welcome you all. Today's speaker is Dr. Aditya Srinivas. I have 10 pages of biodata right now, but we don't have time so much that we can read so much of total experience. So I'll just read the key achievements of his. Mr. Aditya Srinivas, he is a MBA gold medal. He is a PhD. He is a MDP from IIM Ahmedabad. He is a CWA plus he is a ISO 9001-2008 lead auditor. He has 12 years of corporate experience in the field of financial services with a complete knowledge about all the segments of the capital market and the financial products. He has exposure to research in the capacity of fund manager of various assets allocation and various asset leakage. He has a complete knowledge about the working of the operation aspects of the capital market in the specific about the stock market fraternity. He has presented research papers in the national and international conferences which gives complete exposure of international experiences. He has invited a Harvard Law School, Boston, USA for the International Conference on Islamic Finance. He has addressed 200 international students at Dubai, IMT Ghaziabad. He has presented India at Taiwan for 19 national conference on international capital markets. He has addressed 48 Arab nationals from 7 Gulf countries in Oman for 4 days on capital market and economy. He has addressed 25 government delegates in Maldives for 3 days on economy and capital market. He has addressed the delegations of Asian Financial Forum on 19th and 20th of January. He has addressed senior level of delegations comprising 48 delegations from 17 countries from IMD Switzerland on Indian economy and capital market. He has represented India at Asian Securities Forum on 2015 at Seoul, Korea, and whereas he has addressed IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Indore, IIM Raipur, and everywhere in IIM Institute. He has addressed German delegations, France delegations on Indian economy at BSc. He has addressed 64 senior level delegations from 16 countries of IMD Switzerland and Indian economy and Indian capital market. With this, I welcome Dr. Sir, Aditya Sir to address our speech.
Friends, very good evening to all of you. First of all, I am really grateful to Vidarbha Industry Association for giving me this opportunity of expressing my views on this Brexit. I really congratulate the new management for organizing themes which are very relevant and contemporary in nature and which affects every economy in the world. See friends, to begin with, I'll explain the overall view, why Brexit happened, what is the effect on India, why our stock markets the way they are behaving. To start with friends, see, as of now, the world economy itself is in a critical situation. See, if we just say USA contributes around 23% in world GDP, Europe contributes 20%, so 43, China contributes 9.3%, 51, and Japan 8.7. So roughly it comes to 61%. That means four major powers contributing 61% to the world GDP. A natural question comes, where is India? We contribute around 2.4% in world GDP. So we are typically a domestic driven demand economy, and we don't have that much impetus or bandwidth to affect global events. But vice versa is correct. Whenever something happens at these economies, our countries definitely get affected, especially our stock market. See, we have to analyze India from two perspectives whenever there is a global event. One is a capital market perspective, one is a real economy perspective. And if we see this Brexit event also, see, basically in Brexit, 52% people said we want to leave and 48% said we want to stay. To be very frank, when we were discussing this at our Bombay level with various dealers before 2-3 days of the event, see, actually the market never anticipated that UK will walk out. Rather, the underlying current was probably it would stay, continue with the EU only. So that was a rude shock to the market, and that is why there was a knee-jerk reaction where markets crashed by more than 1,000 points. Typically, if we see our historical framework also, when markets came down, everybody feels scary what this has happened. But if we see historic framework, this is nothing new for Indian stock market. See, 2008 there was global financial crisis, and our markets from 21,000 had come down to 7,600 because again FIIs had withdrawn money. There was liquidity crisis in USA. They took back the money, so markets crashed. 2011 European Union crisis had just started. In that year also, Indian stock markets came down by 24.5%. We were the worst performing stock markets. And in 2015, during this Chinese economy problem which came in later half of 2015, our stock market again gave a negative return of 5%. And the fourth is this Brexit, where again our markets corrected by more than 4%. So that means what? If you form a link between all these four events, it clearly shows that whenever there is a global level issue, our stock markets are the first to crash. And this has a simple reasoning and logic because our markets are in any case driven by foreign institutional investors. Right now, some 1,757 FIIs are registered with SEBI, which itself is a record. It's a big number. And they are holding Indian company share worth $328 billion, which accounts to 51% of free float market cap. So if this kind of holding these people are having, so obviously they will make our markets dance to their tune. In fact, just to share that even private sector banks like ICICI, HDFC, they are having a lot of shareholding in terms of FIIs. So obviously there is a pressure going to be on the stock market. Whenever there is a global event, they withdraw money. But vis-a-vis this, if we see what is the effect of this Brexit or in general any global event on our economy, here again you will find a similar pattern. See, 2008 when there was global financial crisis, in that year our GDP grew 6.3% as compared to world economy growing at 1.5%. Similar pattern was seen during European Union crisis in 2011. That time our GDP grew 7.1% as compared to 2.5% global average. And right now also IMF is telling that the world GDP is likely to grow 3.2%, whereas we would grow at 7.5%. That is the estimate of the IMF, International Monetary Fund. Though World Bank has reduced the world GDP growth from 2.9% to 2.4%. So that is definitely a reduction in the global economic outlook. Now, as far as friends Brexit is concerned, to be very frank, it won't have any material impact on our economy. Again I repeat, on our economy. Stock market is a different thing and currency is a different thing. They both are highly volatile and obviously the both will get affected. But as far as real economy is concerned, we have imports of 1% with UK and exports of 3% with UK. So one thing is that on mercantile exports and imports, the impact is very less. Yes, individual companies have a lot of exposure. For example, if we take Tata Steel, now Tata Steel has 30% of its consolidated revenue coming only from UK. So obviously it will be affected, and that management will have to take a call okay, how to hedge that risk basically. So they will have to work on that. Yes, Tata Steel again has a manufacturing production facility there, and with the Great British Pound depreciating, it will help them. So it depends from case to case basis okay, how these companies will basically get affected. Tata Motors again is having 16% of their gross consolidated revenue coming from that particular economy, that is UK. So this will have an implication on that individual. But as far as on broad basis, if our economy is concerned, yes, we are not that much going to be impacted. Yes, but this particular event of Brexit will have lot of political implications at the global level. See, one thing, the strength of Eurozone, which was till now considered as to be in a, what we can say, another leading source in the world against US, now itself its sanctity comes under question mark. Euro as a currency, earlier during 2008 crisis, Euro was considered as an alternative against US dollar, but unfortunately in 2011, Eurozone itself tumbled. It had lot of issues, and then it never could regain out of it. Right now, if we see with this Brexit taking place, see Brexit, this event has just started, it has yet not ended. Because first thing, this is a public referendum, it is not binding on Parliament. And Parliament will have to ratify this thing, convert it into a reality under Article 50 of the British Constitution. Now in that itself what has happened, that the current Prime Minister of Britain, Cameron is already resigned. So the ball goes in the court of a new PM. Okay, he comes, takes the charge, settles the thing, and then he will have to ratify this. So there again there is a question that within 2-3 months, because he is going to leave the office by September. So October new government, if we assume that in October new government comes, and if that government takes a charge and decides that yes, in reality we want to leave Brexit or leave European Union, then that is a major issue. As of now, things are, to be very frank, in what we can say hanky-panky. It is not clear whether this will turn out to be a reality or not. But as of now, yes, this will create lot of pressure in stock market fraternity currency. Currency, the risk is that Indian currency is already depreciated. With these events taking place and FII is withdrawing more capital out of our economy, definitely there could be a pressure, and we could see rupee touching 71 level either by September or definitely by December if this basically outflow continues. But as far as foreign exchange reserve are concerned, right now we have $363 billion worth foreign exchange reserve. So that ensures that relatively our economy is in a stable situation. See, right now if we talk of India, it is considered as a heaven for stability as compared to what is happening at the global front. Because globally if we see, all major 4 economies are in trouble. China, the GDP growth has come down. They are telling our GDP growth is 6.8%, but there is a lot of feeling at international level that the real data may be even less than 5%, because they have always a habit to extrapolate their data, and data with China is always a question mark. What data they release, it is ultimately they only know what is the reality behind that. Second, if we see Japan, it is already in recession. Their GDP is minus 0.8%, so that is again a major issue. If we see Europe already in doldrums, and with Brexit happening, now the problem is, or the risk is, that even other economies may feel that let we also conduct a referendum and walk out of it. See, yet there is no clear indication how Greece will repay its debt. Greece debt to GDP ratio is 177%. Spain, it is 120%. Italy, it is 160%. And these are the 3 major countries which had created problem in 2011, and till date, even in 2016, these problems have not got solved. That means the way these economies have borrowed, and there is no roadmap how they are going to repay it back. And when these kind of news hit the global economy, obviously stock markets are the first casualty. Because whenever such news comes, FIIs will change their asset allocation. That means they will withdraw money from equities, and gold as a result immediately starts going up. We have already seen in 2 days 5% gold went up. So that is why this has an inverse correlation. Any bad news for global economy will be a good news for gold. And one very important historical pattern, friends, in 1997 we had Southeast Asian crisis. In that particular time, on that very day, our markets had crashed by 2.7%. But within 1 year, markets gave a return of 8.2%. Then second, when we had Pokhran test, again our markets on that day crashed by 3.7%. But within 1 year, markets gave 11% return. 2008 global financial crisis. In that year, markets crashed by 52%. The 2009 Sensex gave a return of 81%. So historically, what has been seen that whenever there is a global event which has troubled Indian stock market, the very next year our markets have bounced back like anything. So this is more of a knee-jerk reaction. Even today, if we see, I think markets were 150 or 200 points plus. So it is a knee-jerk reaction when it comes to stock market, because stock market always discounts the future in advance. So they see that there is uncertainty, there is no surety or clarity about how events will shape up. So basically FIIs withdraw the money, and that creates a major issue. On the other hand, as far as our domestic macro factors are concerned, relatively we are stable, no doubt. But yes, government needs to do a lot in order to improve the situation at the grassroots level. Because right now our domestic concerns are more as compared to global concerns. Our biggest concern right now is monsoon. That whether monsoon will be normal, distributable equally, because unless agriculture growth comes in positive territory and grows at higher this thing, our GDP won't go back to 9%. See, right now, even for data analysis, there are questions. See, Brexit is one of the events. It is not something that is going to dictate the entire scenario. It is just a one-time event. And in this also, stock market has been affected more, not our Indian real economy. As I said, our economy relatively is much in a better position because of three reasons. Number one, demographic dividend, what we say basically, we have more than 70% of population less than 35 years of age. So that is a key benefit what our economy has. Average age of an Indian is 25 years as compared to if we take USA, it is 38, China 37, Europe 47 and Japan 52. So relatively we are much better poised in terms of population composition. Yes, how we use this population to our benefit again is a challenge for us. Second, domestic consumption. As this Brexit example also shows, we don't have much of a international trade relation. We are more of a domestic driven economy even today, because more than 80% of what we produce we consume within India. We export only 20%. So that is a major what we can say cushion to our economy, that we are not dependent on global markets for selling our products. And third, the ability of Indians to save money. That means we are a saving oriented economy. Our savings rate is 27% as compared to global average of 22%. So that has ensured that we have savings which results into capital formation into investment and asset creation. So we have a lot of ownership assets. Our companies are relatively cash rich and their balance sheets are less leveraged as compared to what is there at the global level. See, if I just share a data, in 2007, our average GDP ratio of all listed companies was 0.33. Right now it is at 0.71. The average debt equity ratio of all listed companies. So still we are in a better position as compared to global level. But yes, given the fact, we should not be complacent, because in front of this there are a lot of challenges also. See, right now the government is telling that our GDP data is 7.8, 7.9, but to be very frank, it doesn't match with the grassroots level reality. Why it doesn't match is because if we say IIP data, Index of Industrial Production, it is at minus 0.8%, which tracks the manufacturing growth demand. If we talk of CPI, again it has climbed to 5.76%. So if CPI is rising, I am sure that the new RBI governor will again find it difficult to reduce the interest rate. So that will again put brakes on capacity utilization and industry expansion. Right now capacity utilization is only at 71%. So that creates a major question mark. Then how will new job opportunities get created? And right now, though Prime Minister is trying its best to sell India image, sell our markets, sell our demographic dividend theme, but the bottom line is, do we have jobs for all these engineers, doctors, chartered accountants and MBAs who are passing out in economy? That is a major question, because we need to create 1.5 crore jobs every year for next 20 years in order to get this entire benefit of this demographic theory what we are selling to the world right now. Otherwise this entire theory will backfire. See, our entire theory is based on one assumption, that India has a market, you come and sell, people are ready to buy because they have income, they are going to spend. But the bottom line is, unless we create proper income opportunities for them, how they are going to spend? So these are more actual challenges at grassroots level rather than Brexit. See, Brexit will have an impact on currency. Currency would depreciate because FII may withdraw the money. At the same time, stock markets would definitely be under pressure, and vis-a-vis gold may rise. Even gold may see new highs also. That is even not ruled out. Given the global dynamics and the way uncertainty is there in global markets, it may happen that gold may, you may see that gold crosses 33,000 level and it may go up on the higher side. But these are all dependent on foreign events. As far as our economy is concerned, relatively yes, we are stable, but at the same time there are a lot of challenges which we need to address. Otherwise, this GDP growth will again further come down. In my opinion, the basic things which the government has to focus is that increase manufacturing base in India. We need to set up manufacturing facilities which will create jobs at the grassroots level, and that will ensure that even GDP growth is much more sustainable rather than focusing only on service sector. See, in our GDP, agriculture contributes 14%, industry contributes 14%, and 70% is services sector. But the irony of the fact is that even today 62% of our population is still dependent on agriculture for livelihood. That means unless agriculture sector grows at 4% per annum, our GDP will never touch 9% per annum. And that is a main challenge for the government. And in agriculture also there are a lot of issues, like even after 70 years of independence, only 35% of the total land gets irrigation facilities. That means 65% of the agriculture land is still dependent on the mercy of the monsoon. So that is again shows what poor progress we have made at the grassroots level. See, actually things have to improve at the lowest level, because unless the base is strong, the building will never sustain. So that is what the government will have to focus it out. These events like Brexit, they are long term in nature. See, basically these things will have impact over a period of 2 years, because even European Union will have to renegotiate 60 international contracts which they have entered into when Britain was a part of it. So it is going to be a long event, and during this entire process also lot of rude shocks may come out. See, Britain was actually UK, that is UK was contributing more to EU and rather getting it less. And another important equation what I personally see is that in this year 2016, US is going to have elections. So even that will have a major impact on development of EU as well as on the overall world. Because if that particular person, Donald Trump, gets elected, obviously that would create a lot of different political equations altogether at the global level. The way right now, even before elections, the way he is making statements, the way he is making his mindset known to the people, that would be a still major challenge as compared to what has happened in Europe. So these are some of the challenges, friends, which the world will have to brace it, and India, yes, will relatively perform better, but for that government will have to basically work at the grassroots level. And here I would really like to highlight that ease of doing business, which is so talked upon, actually to do business is becoming more difficult rather than easy. See, our main problem is at the domestic level and not at the international level. If we are able to manage that businesses open easily, close easily, they are able to do business well, then employment opportunities will be created and everything automatically will fall in place. Unless businesses are given a comfortable hand, I don't think that foreign events, they will come, they will go, and that will mostly impact capital market, not the real economy, because in any case our real economy is domestic driven economy. If we take our automobile sector, FMCG sector, more than 50% of the sales come from rural India. In fact, right now, just to share with you, there are 24 crore families in India. This data was given in Parliament. 24 crore families, out of that 17 crore still lives in Indian villages, even today, with an average monthly income of 5,000 rupees. This survey was conducted by previous government, but for best reasons known to them, they didn't come out with this data. This government released this report in Parliament. It's a census report based on various socio-economic pattern which they have carried out. So that clearly shows that our problems or our base lies within rather than outside. So these are the issues which the government will have to focus. Here linking, see, Brexit is one. Linking another important issue is exit of Raghuram Rajan. The way basically our RBI governor was, to be very frank, rather forced to basically leave this thing. We created such a scene that he himself said, "Okay, boss, I don't want to continue." So if we lose out such intellectuals, obviously that creates a pressure on the economy, because he was a person who had complete international background, knowledge of international economics, and positioning India in a proper way to the outsiders. See, today we have to understand one thing, that we have a lot of labor. We require capital to deploy this labor. So unless foreigners are confident about our monetary policy, economic policy, why would they put in money in our economy? Yes, banking system is under a lot of stress, agreed, to which to certain extent Rajan's aggressiveness is responsible. He made banks go for their provisioning at one go. Actually, this should have been done in a phased manner, so that at least banks' balance sheet would not have become red. Right now the scenario is that all PSU banks are almost in net loss, so they don't have money to lend to the fresh projects now. So it will again put pressure on the GDP growth rate. See, unless industries get credit, rather right now there is ample liquidity, but there is no takers of credit. because there is no business confidence. So that confidence level has to go up. Plus, government will have to look businesses as partners rather than basically having a view whereby we control businesses because they are making profit. The same issue is with the capital market. See, just to share with you, from January to June this 2016, Indian stock market has given 6% negative return, but SIP mutual fund registration has gone up by 26%. That means basically one side the capital market brokers are facing problems, direct retail investors not coming. On the other hand, money is going towards mutual fund way, because brokers also find very difficult to run the business because of high cost of compliances. See, this all comes under ease of doing business. So these are actually the grassroots level things which the government will have to look into and make our domestic fundamentals strong, rather than basically getting worried with what is happening in Europe and other things. See, anyways, those economies are much advanced and they will always have a say at global level. We don't have a say for the simple reason that our contribution in world GDP is only less than 2.5%. So obviously we are more driven by our own factors. So this is something, friends, we'll have to understand from a macroeconomic perspective. Going ahead, yes, markets would be volatile, currency would be volatile, no doubt in that, because this entire process to get complete, Brexit completely taking final shape will at least take 2 years, and obviously lot of data would come out during that time, even rather shocking data may come out. So when these data will come out now, obviously there will be knee-jerk reactions in the market may further go down, the market may have a knee-jerk reaction. The currency obviously may see more depreciated levels. It may touch even 71 or go above also, because that is what right now the feeling is, that the rupee may further depreciate. So this will definitely put pressure on capital market and currency front. And thanks to that, right now that at least oil is stable. See, you have to understand one thing, that government is saved because oil at our rupee at 67, and because oil is at only 50 or say 45. Had oil been at original price of $100 per barrel, our current account deficit would have totally blasted. And this entire benefit right now what we are having would have been wiped off. So that is something of international factor. Again, why oil has come down, there are various complicated theories. Okay, why oil has basically come down. IMF and World Bank says the world economy is slowing down, so oil has come down. That is one theory. Theory 2 is that US is preparing shale gas technology, which is an alternative to crude oil. So in order to harass US, deliberately prices have been brought down, because shale gas is viable only if it is above $80 per barrel, if the crude oil is above $80. So in order to harass them, this has been done. Theory 3 says that Islamic State organization is selling lot of oil in the black market, so that has increased supply and the price is out dwindled. That is theory 3. And fourth is that Iran will be joining now crude oil production, and their crude oil production is at only $2 per barrel as compared to $35 per barrel, which is the average cost of other OPEC countries. So these are various permutation combinations talked upon, and crude oil coming down benefits India in a big way, but it creates lot of problem for almost 70 countries in the world, including 52 Arab countries. See, basically last to last year when crude oil was at $110, there was current account surplus of 475 billion with the Gulf nations. Right now with crude oil at 50, this balance has come down to only $60 billion, and they are now finding it very difficult to run the economy with the original budgets, because their income itself has gone down. So this creates two risks. Number one, 7 lakh Indians working there. So risk is that if these people start retrenchment, this will be the first lot to come back. So that will stop our remittances and create obviously employment issues in our economy. And second, basically the way they have invested, their sovereign wealth funds have invested in our markets, if they start dwindling that money, means winding up that money, that will again put pressure on our rupee and our capital markets. So this is all, to be very frank friends, global linkages. So it is not easy basically to pinpoint one issue and say, okay, because of this has happened. It has multiple dimensions. As I also said, okay, political implication. With Europe becoming weak, the force of US will again go up, because then there would not be any person, what we can say country to oppose it or basically to counter it. On the other hand, China itself is busy in its own problems. See, in spite of our Prime Minister visiting so many countries, the recent example where we were not given a seat in the nuclear suppliers group, again clearly highlights the fact that though countries on our face say that we are with you, but when it comes to critical issues, they are not supporting us. So even that is a clear-cut highlighting factor. Okay, the world is yet divided, though they seem to be appear. And another is that there are lot of issues at global level also, plus lot of issues in our domestic economy also. So unless we put our house in order, the foreign issues will always have their weightage on our economy, because basically we are a small part in the global economy and these are all giants. So when there is a problem in them, obviously it will affect our economy. See, basically a simple example. We say that we are growing at 8% or say 7.5%, but this is on a base of only 1.9 trillion. US says I grow at 1%, but that is on a base of 16 trillion. So that basically makes the difference. There even one step, it is just like an what we can say ant and an elephant. Elephant में put